welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily enabling platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters the most to you, the entrepreneur. And in year 8, we're taking head-on 2 of your most pressing concerns, that are funding and mentoring. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. We're talking about the fintech industry in India tonight. Reports suggesting that fintech and digital solutions have grown at a CAGR of 12%. One company that's leading that change and that revolution really is PhonePe. I caught up with Rahul Chari. He's the co-founder of the company. He's also one of our Knowledge Council members here on season 8 of the show. I asked him about how India is changing when it comes to digital payments, about what it means to be such a young entrepreneur, and also what it means to have been bought out within a year of setting up his company by Flipkart. All that, much more on this exclusive conversation. Listen. Thank you very much for joining us here on this interview, Rahul. Pleasure. Chatting with you, particularly given the fact that you've gone through that entire entrepreneurial journey and you are now the position where you are amongst India's biggest and most well-known startups, really. But I want to start at the beginning and talk about the fact that, when you were starting out, did you perhaps foresee that this is where, and this is how large maybe the market could become, or this is where you would be?
Every entrepreneur, when they start off, obviously dreams that we'll grow really, really big. And we had mapped out the market opportunity, specifically on the payments and the fintech space, with a lot of competition that did exist, even when we started. We were very sure that nobody has really scratched the surface in terms of taking this to the masses, right? Digital transactions, even today, are a very small percentage of all the transactions that happen in the country. So clearly, from a market opportunity, we were very, very confident that this is a great market to enter and solve problems in a very different way. Having said that, in the last 3 years, the kind of scale that we've achieved, we ourselves have been taken by surprise pleasantly. Okay. So it's been a great journey, and we continue to actually be significantly invested in solving for the future, because the number of different opportunities, whether it's now the next step being financial services, right? While continuing to grow the whole digital transaction base in tier 2s and tier 3s, there are an immense number of opportunities to chase.
I think what is fascinating about your own story and about PhonePe's story is that within a very short span of really being set up, you were acquired by a company as large as Flipkart. Mm-hmm. What perhaps do you think was your USP? Great question.
So when we started with payments, like I was mentioning, it did seem like the market was already fairly cluttered and there was a lot of competition, but it was basically our approach to payments and financial services that was very, very different.
Sure.
We started out with only peer-to-peer money transfers, very specifically focused on ensuring that that one particular problem, which today was happening through net banking or offline side, is solved in the most seamless manner. And with the launch of UPI, we found the perfect opportunity to marry that infrastructure that the country was building with a great product and platform that we could take to the masses. We wanted to just start with that and build on top of that purely through partnerships and a platform approach to build out an ecosystem.
Sure.
That was the first time anybody had thought of payments, consumer side payments,
sure,
as a platform that is open for businesses and other financial instruments to actually come on as a single base.
Sure.
Until then, everything that was being done was about either locking in consumers to a particular form of digital currency or locking in businesses to one single platform.
Sure.
We kind of disrupted that and took an open platform approach, which was very refreshing and unique. Flipkart has always been one of those companies that has been very forward-looking when it comes to using technology in the most open possible manner to solve day-to-day problems, right? Shopping being one of them, bringing a lot of sellers onto their platform being another. Even from a technology perspective, contributing back to the open source community. In India, Flipkart has been at the forefront of that. So sheer meeting of the minds in terms of how we think about enabling businesses was the factor that brought PhonePe and Flipkart together so early in the journey, right? For us, it was a great opportunity to kind of come together with a captive use case that would be our launching pad for the various services that we bring to market.
Sure.
Each time we brought a new kind of integration, a new kind of payment option, we would actually test it out with our sister company, which is Flipkart, on their commerce platform. Like, they've been a great partner. So their user base would be the first one that we start showcasing our products to, and from then we take it to market. Even traditionally, if you look at it, over the years, there's always been a commerce platform along with the payments platform that has been very successful on taking various use cases to market.
Sure.
eBay and PayPal comes to mind. Then there is Alibaba and Ant Financials, which is Alipay. WeChat and their own solution in terms of Tenpay is another combination of a very large social platform along with payments, being able to actually penetrate market much more faster and with much more meaning. So taking those learnings and finding a partner who's a strong culture fit were the two reasons that we actually got acquired that early in our journey.
Okay. What perhaps helped you then, as someone who was leading this team, manage that transition? You went from leading a team that was fairly small to then suddenly being acquired by Flipkart and then having a much larger team.
Yeah.
How did you personally prepare?
For that, I have to take you a little back into my journey.
Yeah.
So this is actually our second entrepreneurial stint. Actually third if you count our stint in Flipkart, right? So back in 2009, Samir Burzan, my co-founders, and myself, we had actually started a company. This was in the media distribution space. We got acquired by Flipkart in 2011. At that point, we were a 12-person company, 12 or 13-person company, and definitely even then, Flipkart was much larger than what we were. At that time itself, we actually became the first, what you would call as incubation within Flipkart.
Sure.
We were kept together. We were never dismantled to go into different teams. We were given a charter that was very well aligned to what we were already doing. So we were doing media distribution on a B2B platform before we got acquired. After we got acquired, we actually started building out a B2C product for music and went on to do ebooks,
Sure.
which was a brand called Flight. So there was a strong adjacency to what we were building within Flipkart. The team stayed together and Flipkart took a very hands-off approach
Sure.
and gave us all the freedom, both from strategic direction as well as on the execution. And we kind of realized at that point, what are the ways in which you start working with large teams? How do you leverage some of the common capabilities, whether it's on the technology side or it's on the operation side, while continuing to stay the course on what you want to do?
Sure.
So fast forwarding to 2016, when we got acquired by Flipkart, between 2011 and 2016, both Samir and myself have had a 5-year stint at Flipkart. So we knew all the things that Flipkart is great at. As part of the acquisition itself, it was well understood that this would continue to be a completely independent company, chasing its destiny, because that's what Flipkart acquired us for. So we were in a much better position to kind of leverage Flipkart for its strength.
Sure.
At the same time, to kind of align our vision to ensure that we're continuously adding value to the group company. From people and culture perspective, because we were small in size and there was no plan to rapidly grow the organization, we chose to kind of stay completely independent in a different location.
Okay.
So the teams don't necessarily have to actually suddenly find themselves in a very large company. We ensured that our processes remained our processes. So we didn't necessarily adopt any of the existing people processes that are there in Flipkart.
Okay.
Right? And from a roadmap perspective, we continue to operate completely independently.
Okay.
As a group, we obviously are aware of each other's strategic decisions and roadmaps. But from a day-to-day execution perspective, we stay our course, because that's what worked for us the last time around when we came into Flipkart.
Sure.
Right? So it's been those learnings as an entrepreneur about understanding what are the right synergies to leverage and what is it from a people life stage of the company and from a mission perspective that you need to actually guard when you're going into acquisition, especially by a very large parent.
I'm going to slip into a very short break on that note. Much more on the other side with PhonePe. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on Big Speak, I'm in conversation with Rahul Chari, understanding the kind of revolution that we've seen in the fintech market. Take a listen. So maybe I can use that to ask you to draw parallels. I don't know, perhaps, and hopefully a lot of our SMEs will also be acquired, or at least, large companies will show interest in SMEs. But maybe you could use that to draw parallels, to talk to our entrepreneurs about how, if they are looking at any sort of, working strategically with a larger company, what should they keep in mind? How do you ensure that you are gaining the best out of working with this large business and at the same time maintaining who they are at the core?
Right. So it depends on the kind of engagement. If it is towards some sort of a strategic partnership, or even an M&A or a full acquisition, I think it's important to kind of understand what the driving force is for the decision by the larger parent or the larger company you're working with. If it is more of acqui-hire, where it's about great talent that the company has, I think the promoters and the founders should be aware of that fact, should have a very open discussion with the larger company, and then have a complete transparency with their team that this is largely an acqui-hire. We are being both rewarded as well as recognized for the amazing intellectual capital that we bring to the table, but that means that the team may get distributed into this much larger mothership when an acquisition happens.
Sure.
If the acquisition is either specifically for a product or a combination of product and talent, then it's very, very important to kind of have the discussion with the partner about what the roadmap will be, what is the expectation over the next year. It will be great if it's 2 years, but at least have a visibility into 1 year about the kind of products that they'd be working on. What are the expectations from the partner in terms of adding value to their own roadmap or their own plans?
Sure.
And again, ensuring that you potentially put that into some sort of a document or a contract, so that you do right by the product that you've built, the vision that you've had, and what you've communicated to your employees.
Sure.
If it's more on a pure commercial basis or just an engagement on a particular project, the most important thing when you're a small company and a startup at that, and you're working with a very large client, is you need to be able to ensure that you define the project in such a crisp manner that it has very few loose ends that don't get closed, because those decisions, especially when you're working with a large company, can be really slow. Secondly, you want to actually plan your engagement in a way that 80 to 90% of the work comes from your end as the small company, and very less requirement from the large company. This will ensure that you're able to continuously move. You show traction. You're able to also gain from that, because the market is going to view this engagement as a reference point for what you can do with other players, right? Maybe smaller players. So you need to ensure that over a quarter, you made some decent progress. The worst thing that you can do is get into a very large agreement with a large corporation and not show any movement. So I think it's very important to ensure that from an execution and a traction perspective, you're able to structure the engagement in a manner that you're able to move the needle with minimal contribution from the large partner.
Okay, fair enough. I want to spend the next couple of minutes talking specifically about your business and the business model that you operate in. Demonetization was the biggest game changer for anyone in the fintech space. How did you as a company then adapt to those changes and the opportunities really for fintech businesses that demonetization brought about?
Yeah. So we had launched our product just 2 months before demonetization, and after demonetization, I think we saw an amazing uptake of installations. I think we reached our 10 million installs on our Android app in December of 2016, which was a month into the demonetization, right? So the demonetization was, I believe, a huge catalyst for digital payments. The primary thing it solved for is education. Right? Until then, there was it became a forcing function for people to kind of take on digital payments and therefore learn how simple it is, how safe it is, and how convenient it is. Until then, the largest barrier to trial was the fact that most people thought that, you know what, it's very complex, and it is not safe.
Yeah.
When demonetization happened, there was no choice, and that barrier was broken. Post that, I think there have been other interventions that have been specifically very, very important for our journey and
Sure.
our growth.
Yeah.
One of them was the Bheem app, right, on UPI, which was pushed by the government. That was, I mean, when you have the Prime Minister of the country talking about it and talking about UPI, you can't get a better marketing machine for people to start understanding, okay, UPI is here to stay, right? And I could actually use UPI for daily transactions. So those two things put together, I think, was a huge, huge catalyst for our growth. From there on, I think we've contributed back significantly towards the growth of UPI and therefore the growth of digital transactions in the market. So it's very synergistic. We consider ourselves, one, as a company that needs to compete with other payment players for market share. But in the larger scheme of things, the most important thing that we can do is move the needle on overall digital transactions in the country.
Okay.
Because it's not worthwhile fighting for a small pie of consumers who have already onboarded onto digital payments. The bigger goal is to try to convert the cash market. So
Sure.
that continues to be the mission. And Demon and Bheem were definitely two catalysts that we owe a lot to.
Okay, for a viewer watching this interview then, if you were to give one or two insights about how Bharat is transacting very differently from India, what would it be?
The main thing is, if you walk the streets and look at how Bharat is transacting today, you will realize that even in tier 2s, tier 3s, there are a lot of people who are heavily into bargaining, and it also happens significantly with migratory population, because you realize that the ones who are moving from tier 2s to tier 1s, ones moving from villages to tier 2, they are also moving across state boundaries, right? And the way they transact, language becomes a problem, right? We are that country which has a lot of issues in terms of communication. So numbers are the only way they actually communicate with each other. That was the reason we solved for our first POS using what is called as a calculator POS.
Sure.
So that we can actually just showcase the number, hit a button, and try to do a digital transaction just looking at that calculator. So some of the big challenges continue to be language, ability to actually communicate between a small-time retailer and a consumer on the ground, and enabling effective bargaining, discount, and discovery for those small merchants, right? They continue to be curtailed to a very small audience, while they have the capability to serve a large audience. That's not happening. So those are the kind of challenges that small retailers see.
Okay, what do you wish SMEs knew about, data protection on one hand, and also about just financial transactions and moving more and more to financial transactions across the board, no matter what it is they're doing?
So what SMEs need to realize is that as you move to financial transactions, especially in the digital space, small stores as well as other businesses, the value of the data is immense irrespective of which business you're in. And you have to start both lenses. That if you are a provider of data to other businesses, then you must realize that what all are the value-add services that you can get because of that, and start becoming more demanding about that. As a company itself, in any space, you have to start looking at your data more deeply, start getting significantly more data driven in daily decisions, because effectively financial transactions are the holy grail of data. It defines everything from behavior, what drives a particular party that is part of financial transactions, and therefore what are the different personalized services that you can offer. So starting to get significantly more data driven and starting to actually use the data for direct value add to your consumers is the most important thing that every SME should look at.
Okay, as we're winding down this conversation, I really want to understand from you that when you started out, this was still a fairly nascent industry, fintech, and digital payments was really still very nascent. But since then, this market has gotten very crowded. You do have global companies. I mean, Walmart, for instance, now through its acquisition has a fair presence in India, giving opportunities to businesses like yours. You have banks which are now doing handheld POS, even when it comes to, say, withdrawal of money in the smallest of villages. So clearly there's been a sea change when it comes to how people are using and transacting and using money and transacting. In this environment then, you as a company, how do you ensure that you're staying as relevant to the consumers, as relevant to SMEs, maintaining that share of the wallet? What are you doing? How are you innovating?
So the most important way that we are innovating is with our strategy.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We are the only player that, from a payments perspective, is completely interoperable. Not just on UPI, which is interoperable by nature.
Okay.
We actually integrate every prepaid instrument or wallet that is there in the market. We have our own wallet, but at the same time, we integrate other wallets. We don't necessarily have the consumer store money in any particular instrument. We let the consumer choose whichever is the financial instrument that they want. And we believe it's our responsibility to ensure that if there is a financial instrument that has a digital presence and is of choice by the consumer, it should be made available through PhonePe. So we are the only ones who are a method or a channel for digital transactions and not a financial instrument by ourselves.
Okay.
That means that we continue to be the most choice approach for digital payments for the consumer. Similarly, on the merchant side of things, we are always completely interoperable. We have a in-app platform, as we call it, where while being one of the largest transaction bases in the country, we don't get into any of the businesses directly ourselves.
Okay.
We allow all businesses to access our transacting base. What it gives us is instant consumer base for every small or large business on our platform. At the same time, from a consumer perspective, when it's a very small business and he's transacting there digitally, there's always the concern about data, about whether his financial instruments are protected. When it's on PhonePe, the consumer associates all the trust and the safety with PhonePe and therefore transacts freely with the business. So it's a win-win for the three of us, PhonePe as a platform, the consumer and the merchant. This approach of being an open ecosystem and a platform-driven interoperable payments play is what keeps us ahead in the market.
Okay, so my last question to you then is, what is personally exciting you about the fintech space in 2019?
The most exciting thing about the fintech space in 2019 is really the transformation about how people look at doing everything they can with their money using technology. If you realize, it started with basically ATM withdrawals. It moved on to using mobile wallets. It's moved in the last couple of years to do banking with a mobile phone. The significant sea change on that. And now investments, where a large set of the population, at least in the metros, has started to have disposable income. They've completed their journey saying that using money, managing money is both done using technology. The last part, which is about growing your money or protecting your money, also we can use technology. That transformation is happening this year. So it completes the circle for every consumer to say that we are confident about using new technology for using money, managing money and growing money.
Okay, wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for taking the time to join us on the show. Completely out of time on this episode. If you have any feedback for us, our contact details are coming up on your screen in just a second. Do let us know what you thought of the show and also any questions you may have. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.